as we quickly move into 2026, if you can master this, then you and your sales team are absolutely gonna fly. Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the Sales Circle podcast. As always, this is your podcast that is designed to help you improve and increase your sales, whether you are a business owner, salesperson, whether you are an entrepreneur. If you have to sell, then this podcast is for you. And hell, I'll go above and beyond that. I believe that everyone in a company should be able to sell, everyone from the receptionist to the cleaner. If your team are representing to you and your company in the best ways, then lo and behold, you've got a team ready to sell for you left, right and centre. I'm your host, Rob Spence, an internationally renowned sales trainer, sales author, and of course, coach. And I look a bit different today. Let's address that, shall we? I look a bit different. If you are watching this over on YouTube, or of course, if you follow us on social media, you'll know that I wear, well, you probably won't know, but I wear contact lenses. And on the way into work this morning, I don't know what I've done. I get up ridiculously early at the minute. I need to change this. So I'm like driving into the office at sort of 6:15, and I must have put the lenses in upside down, back to front, and everything else. And they were just hurting and itching. I don't know if you wear contact lenses, but when they kind of catch a little bit, it's a weird sensation. I thought, do you know what? Sod this. I'm going to chuck the glasses on. And it actually looked quite nice with my double-breasted jacket as well. Maybe I need like bigger retro style glasses maybe next time. I'll definitely give off the 80-year-old man look. I don't know. But hello and welcome to this episode of the Sales Circle podcast. We are flying through this season and we're flying through the year. Goodness, we're absolutely flying through the year. And listen, I've not really spoken about this on the podcast as of yet, but we are slowly coming towards the end of season 2. And my, has it been fantastic. Look, we're going to wrap up the season, if not at the end of the year, sort of early 2026, just for a short break, so we can replan, reschedule, and go again, and maybe bring some new features, some new guests, and some new awesome things. But that doesn't mean you should go anywhere. Now, a lot of you watch this over on YouTube, and a lot of you don't subscribe. Please, please, please change that right now. All you gotta do is just click that big juicy red button below the main screen there. And of course, if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Podcasts, please again hit that follow. It really helps. It allows me the chance to give you better content, great content, invest more money in the set, in more guests, and so on and so forth. So please, if you've not done it, please do. Now today, we're going to be talking about something that could revolutionize and change the way that you and your sales team sell and how you grow your business, and how, in particular in 2026, I believe that this is going to be really fast moving, and we've got to integrate this to make sure that we get the best results. We're going to talk about building an agile sales team. Now, look, for me, that the clue is in the title there, being agile, being flexible, being willing to move, and everything else in between. I think the key word there is adaptability, changing with AI, changing with automation, changing as well sometimes actually how the buyer wants things, or how the customer wants things. We're going to talk about what an agile sales team looks like, what traits they need, how to lead them, and how you can make your sales team don't just survive, but they absolutely thrive. So make sure you stay tuned for this episode. It's going to be a fun one. I am going to have to look at my show notes a little bit just to make sure I'm on track. So again, if you are watching on YouTube, I'll try and give you as much eye contact as possible, but I am trying to pick up this. There's one key reason why I want to talk to you about this. There's one key reason why I want to kind of bring this up. And mainly that is because I work with so many sales team of whom are very slow to move, or they're very slow to change, or they've always done it this way, so we're always going to do it this way moving forward. And I think that, doing that is always it's a fast track to disaster, in my opinion. Every business, if you look, has evolved and has changed. And those that do evolve and change are the ones that go on to do well. Those that don't and just stay in the past, or just go, we've always done it this way, unfortunately get left in the wayside. So we're going to talk about, again, what it looks like, how you can implement some skills and tips as well. So we'll crack on with the main part of the episode. But again, make sure you follow, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And listen, why not? If there is someone in your team who you think could deserve listening to this podcast or watching it, please share a link to them right now. So again, I said in that opening monologue, I work with teams who are very slow to change. They're very reluctant to change. They see change, they need change, and it seems for whatever reason take in entirety. And full transparency, I used to work for a company like that. I used to work for a company of whom, they were a fantastic company, very well-established company, have clearly done well over the century plus. I think it was 125 years, give or take, when I left, I think. So they'd clearly done well, but they weren't willing to adapt and change. And although I was bringing ideas to the table, although I was telling them that these things need to be done quick, otherwise our competitors will leave us in the dust, guess what? Those changes didn't happen. And unfortunately, sometimes it wasn't because of a lack of wanting to change. It's just because, for whatever reason, they wanted to take time in change, to not be agile, to not be adaptable. And unfortunately, it's left them in the wayside. They got bought out. The company that bought them out have now sold them again. And they just, from what I can see, just pittering along. They're there, they're pittering along. And unfortunately, you look at what their competitors are doing. The competitors, funnily enough now, are doing everything that I said this company should be doing, goodness, nearly 8 or 7 years ago. And some of that is including the basics, personal branding. Some of it's online brochures, online ordering, better customer experience, and everything else in between. So it's a shame. It's a shame. But it's not just me that thinks that. McKinsey say that companies that embrace agile working models see a 30 to 50% improvement in sales productivity. It's huge, right? 30 to 50%. But why is that? Well, that allows the agile sales teams to respond to those market changes, respond to see what's going on. What we've got to remember is that salespeople are sometimes the people that are in the absolute trenches. They see, they hear, they witness everything. Agile sales teams are able to make those changes according to what those market changes are. They're adaptable to new tech and tools, and they are aligned around the customer needs. And this is the big point I'm trying to make. We sell on behalf of what the customer wants, right? We sell on behalf of what the customer wants. But love them or hate them, this is why Amazon have done so good, because Amazon have come out and said, look, we are going to provide next day delivery on literally pretty much anything that you can get hold of. They've responded to those customers' needs. They also sell an array of products. Now, sometimes it's easier for me to pay a tiny bit more on Amazon and get it delivered the next day, because then it's fresh in my mind, it's delivered, instead of shopping local and so on. Of course, I do agree that Henry Ford said it once, that if he listened to what customers want, he would have designed faster horses and not the automobile, not the car. But once again, that being said, we've got to adapt to what the customer and the marketplace needs. Agile teams are not just fast, they are absolutely focused. Now, in my opinion, in 2026 and now, to be honest, businesses need sellers that can pivot, learn fast, adopt new strategies, but still build that trust with those buyers. And I think this is, if there's one takeaway from today's podcast, I want you to believe in being agile, being quick, being responsive, sometimes being proactive, but absolutely being responsive and fast. I want you to make sure that if you own a business, that you are not stuck in your ways, that you're willing to listen, learn, adapt, and change. As well, if you are maybe in a business that's a bit slow, that's a bit sort of slow on its feet, again, please send this podcast on to your boss. And I'm going to speak to you directly now, boss. You need to move fast. Look at Blockbuster. Right, Blockbuster were living the dream, man. Living the dream. Blockbuster were huge stores in every city, in every town. Right? They were absolutely creaming it. It was incredible. Friday nights were spent going to the video store, picking out your movies, picking out your snacks and so on. It was great. They had the chance to buy Netflix. They had the chance to revolutionize this new way of watching movies. And they said no. They said, no, we're stuck in our ways. This is how we're going to do it. Where are Blockbuster now? Just a figment of our imagination, a figment of our memory. So please, Mr. or Mrs. Boss, please start to be agile. Or better still, allow your sales team to be agile. Give them the freedom to be agile. And whilst we talk about that, what are the key characteristics of agile sales teams? Just before we do move on to that part of the podcast, I do just want to remind you, we are proudly partnered with Monday.com CRM. Monday.com CRM is a fantastic tool that will allow your sales team to be agile. We've used Monday.com for years here at Paragon Sales Solutions, both through the project management system and the CRM system. And my gosh, it revolutionized the way in which we work. Not only can we manage our projects, whether that be our digital marketing projects, our internal operational projects, or even sometimes our HR projects. The system also has allowed us to manage our sales leads, our prospects, our sales pipeline, And now, including their new CRM, AI and automation tools, it frees up so much of my time that I can do more things like this. I can record more content, record more podcasts. If you're looking for a new fantastic CRM system that's absolutely going to wipe the socks off your current provider, hit the link in the show notes or the video description below. Click on the link, you'll get some free access and some other little goodies. Give it a go for yourself. So what are the key characteristics of an agile sales team? Well, first and foremost, there is that cross-functional thinking. They collaborate closely with the marketing, product and customer service. I've believed for years, and if you look back at some of my earlier work, please do go look at them. Some of the original quote-unquote podcasts I released were called the Sales Snippets, and they're available all on the Paragon Sales Solutions YouTube. My goodness, do I look different? My goodness, do I look younger? Since then, I've been preaching about how we need to stop this siloing and how we need to stop the separation of marketing, product, operations, customer service. I believe that the way of modern working is that we're all a little bit of something. We'll always have our designated services, but we are all a little bit of something. Now, again, my point number 2 here is an agile sales team are very customer-centric. Again, I've gone through processes where the whole buyer journey and that customer experience is horrendous. I believe that agile sales teams are those that are obsessed with the buyer journey. And better still, allow that buyer journey to be seamless. Some companies seem to, for some reason, want to make the customer journey as hard as damn possible. They want to make it hard for their customers to buy. They want to make it hard to do business because they're so focused on those internal processes. Oh, well, accounts said we've got to do it this way. Our accounts said we've got to do it, make sure it's all legal, make sure everything's printed and scanned back in. I call absolute bollocks on that kind of nonsense, right? The customer journey has to be flawless. We live in a very competitive age. We live in a very competitive world. No matter your service, no matter your industry, unfortunately, there's no such thing as a unique selling point anymore. There's no such thing as, oh, we don't have any competitors. There are competitors out there, my friend. A quick Google search will soon show me that. Sometimes the spoils go to those who made that customer journey flawless. Again, I ranted about this several weeks ago, maybe several months ago now, about this whole, we must buy local, we must shop local, shop small. Which, again, I agree with. I understand the theory. I understand the mindset. However, business shouldn't be a charity. In my opinion, we shouldn't just give our money and business to businesses just because they're local, just because they're close by. I would rather, in my what's the word I'm looking for? In my opinion, and some of you are going to shoot me, I'd rather shop with a big store if I know I'm going to get a good service and I'm going to get stuff delivered. Again, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't shop local. It just means that we shouldn't shop local just to give the dog a bone, just to be that charitable donation. If a small business absolutely nails it and delivers great customer service, then of course, absolutely. Case in point, why should I go to a bespoke gift hamper supplier, spend minutes on a very clunky website, I have to spend all this time putting in horrible, card details to be the product to be delivered in, 5 to 7 working days. When again, I can go on Amazon, buy the same product, click literally 3 buttons and the product's with me the next day. It does sound like I'm a massive pervert for Amazon right now, and I'm not. I want to make that clear. But the point I'm trying to get to is Amazon have gone really customer centric, and so can you. And maybe if you're a business owner, I want you to really hyperanalyze every single part of that journey. Where are you losing customers? Where could you potentially lose customers? If you are a potential customer of yourself, where's going to upset and annoy you? Are you having to get customers to fill in clunky, horrible forms that just don't go anywhere? Or are you, going through the motion and making it so seamless? Of course, I believe sometimes that although I believe there is a huge importance and a huge need for sort of gut instincts within salespeople. I believe sometimes the human instinct is fantastic. We should allow, beg your pardon, our salespeople to use data-driven insights to drive those decisions. And of course, and this is a big thing, we've got to make sure that those feedback loops are quick, right? We're not waiting for a quarterly review. We're not waiting for a half a year meeting. We're not waiting for a yearly meeting. We are getting that feedback and we're making those changes there and then. Again, I've seen it normally within corporate businesses. They want to put it through 27 managers one day at a time before change happens. Lo and behold, someone else has already done it. Those feedback loops have to be so tight, whether that is failure and adapting quickly. We've got to make sure that we as business owners, we listen to our troops on the ground, right? They're the people that are seeing and talking to our customers day in and day out. And let's go a step and beyond that. Let's think about the morale. Let's think about the team spirit that comes. If you're a salesperson and you know that you're providing feedback to your bosses, that those changes are happening almost instantaneously, or even better still, that you're still just being listened. Isn't that far better than, just put a little slip in that little box over there, and next month one of the managers will have a little read for a while. He's eating his Wotsits with all his cheesy fat fingers. Yeah, that's what will happen. No, get those feedback loops closed as tight as possible. Gartner released a review that said sales teams using Agile feedback cycles improved conversion rates by 25% in under 6 months. So again, sometimes it's not necessarily down to the sales training. Sometimes it's not down to the, what's the word I'm looking for? The closing techniques, the questioning techniques of the salespeople. It's actually just the ability to close some feedback. Well, listen, in a minute, I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can create a tangible, agile sales culture. But before then, we're just going to do our listeners' questions. So as you know by now, every single week, I ask you to send in your burning sales questions, whether they be about objection handling, maybe you've got a prospect you're really struggling with, maybe there's just a mindset issue you're struggling to overcome. If you have a sales, a marketing, a business growth question of any ilk, I'd love to hear from you. You can email into thesalescircleofficial@gmail.com, or you can drop me a message directly on LinkedIn, or find The Sales Circle anywhere on social media. The first question here is from Hannah, who says, what's the first thing I can do to make my sales team more agile? That's a great question. Look, the key thing here is to remove those bottlenecks. As I said earlier, close off those feedback loops. Give your reps, your salespeople, your sales team the power to make those decisions without always having to get a managerial sign-off. Speed is absolutely key. Speed is of the essence. Again, and I don't want to keep banging on about Amazon, but we can't neglect the fact that one of the greatest things about Amazon is the fact that their customer service team have the autonomy to make decisions. If I've got a return problem, if I've got an issue, 9 times out of 10, again, that issue is dealt with within 5 minutes, just there by the person. I then dealt with another company recently. I won't name them, but they're a very annoying company. It took me an hour. It took me an hour to get any form of refund. It was absolutely mind-boggling. So, Hannah, I would say just empower those reps. Give them the ability to make decisions. You don't have to throw everything at them all in one go. Allow those decisions to build up, but eventually you will get there. Jake says, how do I build agility into our sales meetings? That's a fantastic one. I think shorten them. Look, no one really likes a meeting. There's all those memes, there's all those, skits about this could have been an email. I think some people like to have meetings that go on because it makes them feel important. Maybe it makes them, give them some power because they were bullied at school. I don't know, right? Trim those meetings down and make sure that those meetings have a clear agenda that allow the meeting to get to where it needs to. Free up some time. Meetings don't have to be 90 minutes long. Cut to the point, cut to the chase a little bit. And I think as well, just on that, kind of what we're saying about Hannah's question, allow your team to talk. No matter how senior or junior, allow your team to talk. And if anything, I'd reverse engineer that. I'd get the juniors to speak first and work the way up. Normally, juniors are the ones that have come in the same mentality of the modern day consumer. So allow them the chance to speak first. Don't let the seniors speak first and it overpower the meeting and kind of dictate the way that which they want it to go. Give the floor to the juniors. Allow them to have their say and then allow leadership to step in and come in with theirs. Mina says, can you be agile without tech tools? Absolutely. Yeah, of course you can. I mean, look, CRM systems, other automation tools will help because they'll free up time. They'll stop those bottlenecks, of course, as I said earlier during our little promo there. Monday.com CRM is fantastic for this kind of thing because the AI and automation will free up so much more time. You can be a bit more agile and a bit more flexible. And then as well, you'll get all your sales dashboards and everything else in between. But agility comes with mindset, right? Sometimes it's a culture thing. Sometimes it genuinely is a culture thing. If we go back to Hannah's question, what if we empower the younger people? What if we empower the juniors? What if we empower the salespeople to make decisions, to come to the table with ideas? That is a culture and a mindset shift. Doing that doesn't always lead back to, tech. It's just all about getting that culture bred quickly that, listen, we move fast here. The market moves fast, and so do we. We're not, moving a massive Arctic ship in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. We are moving quick. So thanks so much for those questions. I hope they've helped. And allow me, if I may, to move on to some tangible steps to help you create that agile sales team that you deserve. So if you want to really future-proof your sales team and make sure that as we move into 2026 and from now, that you've got an agile team that truly get it and sell on your behalf. Well, number one is really embrace a culture of continuous learning. I know I look like a geek today. I've got my glasses on. I've got my double-breasted old man's jacket on, right? I'm a big believer. I look like a professor a little bit, probably the nutty professor, but I believe in continuous learning, right? I think that the weakest salespeople and the weakest sales teams are those that do either no training or they do a bit of training and then just forget about it. Get your team reading books. Send this podcast onto your team. Get other sales podcasts out to your team. Embrace that continuous learning. One thing that I kind of penned is, you look at health and safety, you look at construction, they have their toolbox talks where it's a weekly, a fortnightly, a monthly, sometimes a daily, small little talk on some form of health and safety or some form of regulation. The idea being that over a period of time, that information is drip fed. Why don't you do the same for yourselves? If you're doing a weekly meeting, just do a toolbox talk. Of course, make sure we incentivize that innovation. Let's reward those reps. Let's reward those teams for testing new methods, tools, and scripts. Again, let's give them the power. Don't just give someone a script and say, read from this. You must read from this script. And if you deviate from the script, you're an idiot and I'll sack you, right? Give them some autonomy. Give them some agility to do what they want to do. Of course, we could use some agile frameworks just to speed things up. So we could create sprints for outreach, experiments for messaging, and retrospectives to improve. We can create little playbooks to give everyone the emails, the scripts to use and take on board, right? And of course, flatten that communication. Make it so easy for that feedback to travel. We said earlier, we've got to make sure that those feedback loops are completely tight and that communication channel is weak as anything, right? Make sure that you're not leaving it for a quarter for changes to happen. Make sure you're not leaving it for weeks for changes to happen. You should have direct communication. Listen, whether that's through Monday.com CRM, whether it's just in a WhatsApp group, whether it's just being direct email, make sure that communication is clear and it's fast. So listen, as I said earlier, as we move into 2026 and as we close off 2025, it's important we move fast. The market is changing every single day. The way in which we buy is changing every single day. The way in which we make decisions is changing every day. If you as a sales team are not changing every day, your competitors are. So please take away some of these hints, take away some of these tips, and you'll be absolutely fine. Just before we do wrap up, I'm going to give you my book recommendation of the week. Now, seeing as it's slowly coming up to Christmas, I've got to plug some of my own books, right? I've got to plug some of my own books. And I'm actually going to plug my very first book today, Relationship Selling. I published this. I wrote this while I was still in full-time employment. This came out in 2017. And the book is called Relationship Selling, and it's all about the theory, the mindset in which sales are built on relationships. And we know that. We know that sales are built on relationships, trust, rapport, and everything else in between. I wrote this on the back end of a massive, massive learning journey. The story is no secret. I fell into sales like many people do, or many people have. I didn't really know much about sales other than what I'd seen in movies or been taught by my colleagues or my peers or my bosses. Picked up some bad habits. And I started to learn. I started to read books. I bought my first book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I started to research. I started to study. I used to read theories. I used to watch webinars, seminars. The one thing that really kind of came into literally every communication around sales was relationships. Of course, we can talk for hours about, closing methods, questioning methods. We can talk about, value proposition statements, elevator pitches, everything. Of course we can. But the one thing that was like a constant throughout everything was developing a relationship. Hence why I then penned Relationship Selling. So, as I said earlier, if you're trying to build a sales team that, are looking for an entry-level book that will help them change their mindset slightly in sales and maybe start their learning journey, then I do have to recommend Relationship Selling. As always, we will drop a link for you to get your own copy in the show notes or the video description below. And that about wraps us up for another episode of the Sales Circle podcast. As always, a massive thank you for joining me. I love the fact that so many people of you around the world. I was looking actually on a map recently where people are listening to this information, and it is crazy. It's insane to think where my voice has been heard, which is insane. So thank you so much. Remember, we've got to be agile as we close off 2025, but of course, as we move into 2026. If not, we'll get left behind. Sometimes those that move first win. It's as simple as that. So please empower your sales team, empower your reps, close those feedback loops, allow them to make decisions, wrongly or rightly, allow them to make decisions, allow them to have their say, allow them to move quick, and take away that red tape, that bureaucracy. That's not just for your sales team, but your customers as well. If your customers don't enjoy the buying experience, they will not do it. It's as simple as that. Thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. As a reminder, these come out every single Thursday and will until the end of this season. And just on that, don't panic, don't stress. Just because it's the end of season 2 doesn't mean that I'm going to be gone forever. It just means that at some point, I'm going to come back stronger and bigger than ever. Don't forget, I do have another podcast that if you do fancy checking it out, please do so. It's called How I Failed in Business. It's available on all of these same platforms. If you do fancy checking out a nice, fun, light-hearted business podcast with my good friend, good colleague, Megan Grace, then just search for How I Failed in Business and I'll see you over there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see you next Thursday. Keep selling. Until then, all the best. Cool. Another one back. And that's it for another episode of the Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button, join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.